Whether you operate one forklift or thousands, one location or hundreds, the new My Toyota customer portal can help you optimize your operation and material handling equipment. This one-stop, free-to-use platform is designed to help you take control of your information and make smarter decisions, all at the touch of a button. Register and access your data today at my.toyotaforklift.com. That's my.toyotaforklift.com.
With e-commerce off the charts, many small and growing warehouses are asking, how can I get ahead when my warehouse is barely keeping up? The answer is future-ready warehouse tech from Zebra Technologies. Warehouses can simplify and upgrade all processes, from automated inventory management to hands-free picking, with Zebra's tailored, scalable mobile solutions. They're simple and intuitive. There's never been a better time to upgrade for success with Zebra. How can your warehouse get ahead? The answer's in black and white. Get the answers at zebra.com/theanswer. That's zebra.com/theanswer. Fulfillment demand continues to skyrocket and outpace available labor. To keep up, warehouse operators are turning to flexible fulfillment solutions like 6 River Systems. Utilizing 6 River Systems' award-winning combination of collaborative robots, artificial intelligence, and operational expertise will make your associates and wall-to-wall fulfillment workflow more efficient. No new infrastructure, no change to warehouse layout, easy to deploy and scale, easy to train and retain associates, all at half the cost of traditional automation. Want to take your fulfillment operation to the next level? Go to www.6river.com to learn more. That's www.6river.com to learn more.
The New Warehouse Podcast, hosted by Kevin Lawton, is your source for insights and ideas from the distribution, transportation, and logistics industry. A new episode every Monday morning brings you the latest from industry experts and thought leaders. And now, here's Kevin.
Hey, it's Kevin Lawton with the New Warehouse Podcast, bringing you a new episode today. Today's episode, I will be joined by Justin Goldston. He is a PhD, and he is a professor and coordinator of project and supply chain management at Penn State University. He's going to talk to us about what the environment is like right now in the supply chain education world, and he's also going to give us a little bit about his background, and we're going to talk about sustainability in a different kind of sense. So I'll get to Justin, and we'll get into those topics in a little bit. So Justin, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.
Definitely happy to get you on. I know you're kind of tough to pin down. You were just telling me you got conferences all over the world that you speak at, right?
Yes, I had one over in Europe this morning, then I have one in Vietnam at 12:30 in about 4 hours from now. at the time of this recording, at 8 o'clock at night.
Wow. All right. So tell us a little bit about your background and kind of how you, I guess, came to be a professor now and now a speaker all over the place.
So before going into higher education, well, I'll start off with I had my undergraduate degree in supply chain management, went and got my master's in supply chain management from the Penn State University, and then I received my doctorate within leadership and organizational change. Once I entered into the industry from undergrad, I began as a management consultant, primarily working with manufacturers and distributors. So I always joke whenever I say half joke, half serious, when I say that I've seen the good, bad, and dysfunctional in terms of distribution, warehousing, and manufacturing. That experience has created some very valuable nuggets when it comes to higher education, and I try to paint the picture and take the theory out of higher education, because that's what a lot of practitioners see what the issue is with colleges and the higher education system is broken and things like that, where, I take the theory out of it and I bring in that real life application into my classroom.
That's good. Yeah. And I think, it's funny you mentioned the dysfunctional and the bad, right? I think you actually end up learning more in your experiences from the bad and dysfunctional experiences than the good ones, probably. And that's it's painful to be in those experiences, but you end up learning a lot from that. And I like that you say that you kind of take I'm sure you kind of pepper in the theory, but you also use the real world experience too. I mean, I remember I had a boss, and I actually didn't go to school for supply chain actually, but we had a kid he hired straight out of school, supply chain major, and I remember he said, like, one of the first things he said, he was like, "Oh, just forget everything they taught you in school. Like, this is going to be totally different." So, so it's interesting that you said that. So how is, is it, you're a professor now, so, how is the overall education environment right now with COVID and all the, I guess, virtual learning I imagine you're doing? How is the environment right now overall, as from a professor standpoint, but what are the students feeling as well?
From a professor standpoint, we're doing our best. and that's going to be at the elementary level. That's going to be at middle school, high school, and in higher education. I would say that it's better this semester. I would say back in the spring semester, it was a challenge. I would say so. In my scenario, I was in a face-to-face environment, and this was so the week before the whole country shut down, the students were going to spring break.
Right. And
I had a few seniors say, "Oh, we're going to Florida. We don't care. It's our senior year." So don't bring your butt back in my classroom. Yeah. So during spring break, that's whenever the cases were rising, and that particular institution extended spring break an additional week, and then after that, then all of the schools began to shut down. So we essentially had 2 weeks to move all of our classes online. Now, I teach business. I teach supply chain. Right. That's easy. But I had peers that were teaching chemistry labs, that were in biology, that were teaching the earth sciences. You can't transfer a lab in 2 weeks. That doesn't exist online. Right, and I still have peers in engineering. They're saying we're trying our best. We're trying our best. And I always try to get the pulse of my students so I can pivot and so I can make adjustments to create the best learning, because I teach 400 level classes, so I teach seniors, and they're about to graduate. So I'm trying to create the best experience possible, and they say, "Yo, your class, your class is no problem." He said, "It's our economics classes, it's our accounting classes." Say we're literally 3 weeks away from finals. Yeah. We still don't know what's going on right now.
Oh man!
But it's a challenge. It's a challenge in some courses. Again, business is easy, and I say that, and I'm going to say this multiple times. There's a silver lining in this, and I try to tell my students that from a business perspective, from a supply chain perspective, this is the environment you're going to be operating in. You're going to be collaborating with individuals from around the country, from individuals around the world. You're going to be on Zoom calls daily. You're going to have to communicate. You're going to have to understand those not the technical skills, the technological skills, right? to be successful within your role within an organization. So I mean, we're working through it, but again, like I said, the students have to learn these skills. And to your point with that one graduate. So I have a project management class and a project portfolio management class. And I told them the very first day, I said, the things you read in this book from a project management perspective, I would say 40% is going to actually happen in real life. Yeah. I said, I'm going to bring the practice in it. And I want to say, here's how you're going to mitigate risk. Right. I said, the whole premise of this class is mitigating risk in projects, because that's the most of the job from a project management perspective. And again, we have seen, I would say that the pandemic has kind of brought additional awareness to the practice of supply chain management, to project management, and to technology as well. Yeah. So,
yeah. Supply chain has become such like a cool thing now, because it's like in the forefront, right? As soon as the toilet paper like ran out, right? That's when everybody's like, "Oh, supply chain, right?" Yeah. So, I mean, with that, I mean, you mentioned you saw a rise in interest. So, have you seen more students either I guess, enrolling in supply chain program, or either maybe transferring or deciding to declare their major in supply chain now?
We'll be back after a quick break.
You hear a lot about supply chains these days, because if the past couple years have taught us anything, it's that an efficient, well-managed supply chain is absolutely critical to keeping businesses successful and consumers happy. I'm Will Haywood, and I host a podcast called All Business, No Boundaries, where we talk about supply chains, how they work, what happens when they don't, and the innovations that are redefining what's possible in the world of logistics. Join me for insightful interviews with thought leaders and industry experts. We discuss how optimizing supply chains can break down the barriers that are holding businesses back. That's All Business, No Boundaries by DHL Supply Chain. Listen and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
I would say pre-COVID, I would brainwash students because I'm biased, right?
Yeah.
So I will say it's easier. But in all seriousness, I do teach the introductory supply chain course within the program that all business students have to take. So I would say that this semester there has been an increased interest in the discipline. I would say that pre-COVID. So I had a conversation with Abe Ashkenazi, the CEO of the Association of Supply Chain Management, formerly APEX. Yeah. And, he said, I asked him a question. I said, how do you make supply chain management appealing? And Abe said, I just threw out the statistics. He said that out of every five supply chain jobs, there's only one qualified candidate. And also from a salary perspective, the average salary for a supply chain out of college is, I forgot the exact, it's between 70 and 75,000.
Right.
And I would say, and again, this is pre-COVID statistics.
Yeah. And
because of the demand, I think that may go up.
I think so.
And depending on the disciplines, like ERP analyst, if you're an AI, oh my goodness, you're talking six figures.
Yeah.
And we're seeing an emergence in artificial intelligence. We'll get into that shortly. Mm-hmm. I don't like that word. That's a buzzword. I don't like it at all. But I actually slipped and said it. So and in AI, as well as machine learning, and I'm big on blockchain, and blockchain has taken a back seat, but you're going to see an emergence once AI has been established and has wider adoption, because now we're going to get into that integration.
Right.
So yes, the supply chain industry is booming, and I would say that the most important piece is that pre-COVID, supply chain management was seen as an expense, but now it's seen as a competitive advantage. And I always say that supply chain management, Amazon saved the world in March and April. And I always say, just think. I said, Amazon used to sell books, and it just saved the world.
I like that. That's good. Yeah. I think it's interesting, because supply chain is so prevalent in our world. It's everywhere. I mean, you can't really get anything without the supply chain being involved. So, and so it's really cool. I mean, obviously, it's it sucks the conditions of which it came out to be like this thing that's in the spotlight now. But it's cool that it is now, and it's getting that awareness, and it's good to hear that students are interested as well. So
yes, you have to make it appealing, and I would say that I always say, I kind of pride myself to say I have not used a single PowerPoint in the classroom this semester. Oh, wow. And I would say, yes, you have to bring the theory in. So my definition of bringing the theory in is talking about the chapter objectives, and we see where it goes from there. Right.
Gotcha.
So, I'll the first week of class, I'll ask the students what companies they had internships with, what is their dream company, what hobbies they have. I had one student that worked for PepsiCo. I had one student that wants to work in the pipeline industry. All students know Tesla. We use Tesla all the time. We use Amazon all the time. They relate to it. They are interested in it. They won't forget it.
Right.
And that's my teaching approach.
Yeah, I think it's the best way to engage the students. And I know, like, I went to school for business, not supply chain, but a different aspect of business. But I know, like, when we're talking theory, it's kind of like, glazing over. And when you're talking experiences and, like, bringing somebody in the classroom and this is what, they did and how they started their business and all that stuff, that's the stuff I think where, you really get the students' attention and where you really kind of learn more from hearing others' experiences.
Yeah, I mean, I have an excellent story where I'm working closely with a blockchain startup, and we recorded a podcast, and I was talking with the CEO, and I said, Christopher, what are you doing? I said, what are you doing at 6:00? He said, nothing. I said, you going to guest lecture? He said, about what? I said, you are an investor, a venture capitalist. I said, you have portfolios. I said, this is a project portfolio management class. I say, just show up, and where it goes is where it goes, right? So, and that's just my way of teaching, because that's how you're going to get engagement from students. So the students started talking to him about a project they just did the week before, and they talked about this one company, Terminal 49, and Christopher's like, wait a minute. He said, I know the CEO of Terminal 49. And it went from there. Yeah, it was an amazing thing, and I work with Christopher. So I work with Christopher a lot, and whenever he gets that smile, he gets that look, I said, okay, something's about to go down.
Brewing, right?
So after the class was over, Christopher sends me an email and says, do you want me to introduce you to the CEO of Terminal 49? I said, absolutely. Next week, the CEO shows up and does a guest lecture for a company that they just research.
There you go. Yeah.
How crazy is that? I mean, that's an academic story for the books right there.
Yeah. That's a good one. I like that. And, it's good too that, you're a professor that's so engaged and in the supply chain world itself that you're able to kind of create those opportunities. So it's really, really good to hear that.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm curious, let's talk a little supply chain here. So you got, one of your focuses that we had discussed, was you do these presentations and conferences and things is you talk about sustainability in the supply chain, right? But sustainability, usually in the mind, it kind of triggers like going green or recycling, things of that nature. But you kind of take a different approach, and there's some other types of sustainability that you discuss. So what other kind of sustainability is there in the supply chain besides like the going green, the initial reaction?
So the going green, I always explain the going green is my way into organizations to talk about sustainability.
Right.
And what I mean by that is that I always say, you've heard of Lean Six Sigma, right? They say, yeah. I say, that's your first step in sustainability. They're like, what do you mean? I say, you're reducing waste, correct? And then reducing waste is saving you, is having a positive impact on your bottom line. I said, yeah. I said, you're making a positive impact on the environment by doing that. Oh, okay. Tell me more. So then that's where we get deeper into the United Nations Sustainability Development Goals. Okay. And there's 17 different goals. And some of those is that gender equality. They're reduced inequality. So that's where that diversity and inclusion comes into play. And another interesting discussion is that, I talk about diversity and inclusion, and fortunately and unfortunately, there's some reservations. There's some opinions.
Yeah.
But I say that, wait a minute. I say that diversity and inclusion is just not about race. I say, think about it. I say, you can be, I say that, you could have your own opinions about this, but let's say that you hire someone from a different country, from India, from South Africa, from Australia. Now they have perspectives in that particular part of the world, into that culture, into that demographic. Now you have an untapped market. Now you're innovative. Now you are introducing a product that country has never seen before. And now you're having a positive impact. Now you're having a positive impact on diversity and inclusion. Now you're having a positive impact on the bottom line. Now you're empowering employees. Now the top people from that ethnicity, from that background, from the MITs, from the Harvards, from the Yales say, oh, the CFO is this, the CIO is this.
Right.
And now you're getting the top companies in the organizations, in your organization. And again, I will say once again that we have made amazing strides in terms of diversity and inclusion in the U.S., but we're a long ways away from having that true equality to meet that sustainable development goals that we are striving for. Will we ever get there? I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's not that difficult. We all just have to come together. We all have to have a common goal. Now, again, there's 17 different SDGs. And I always tell people, I tell leaders this, I tell people in the classroom this. I say, pick your top two. I say, your top two is different from my top two. Your top two is different from Kevin's top two. I say, but we need that. That way, all 17 of those SDGs are addressed. We need different priorities so that all of them are addressed. But the most important thing is that if you strive towards sustainability, it's going to have a positive impact on your bottom line. It's going to have a positive impact on your community. It's going to have a positive impact on your family. It's going to have a positive impact on your life.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. I think that it's interesting, how you bring in these other aspects of sustainability. And I think, diversity and inclusion is one is a big one, right? And it's a tough one, right? It's been like a huge topic of discussion, exactly. It's been huge this year, right? I mean, it's just kind of exploded the discussion, and I think it's right to be discussed. So when you look at diversity and inclusion, if you're just looking within one country, then you're not necessarily being as diverse as you could be, right? So you want to look outside, you want to see all these different aspects, and just like you said, you pull somebody into your organization from a different country, and now all of a sudden you have exposure to that country or that region that they're from, and just like you said as well, students see that and they're like, oh wow, this company has somebody from whatever country they're from. Now it's kind of like, oh, I want to go work for that company, or I'm interested in that company. So now you're opening yourself up to this larger interested talent pool, which just kind of helps you grow and then helps you sustain that talent as well. Because it's kind of like this company is now viewed as one that's, I guess, accepting through the world and, wants to bring in different personalities, different cultures, different ways of thinking in order to kind of come together for the overall goal. And like you mentioned right there, you said, maybe this group wants to do these two goals, or this group thinks these two are the most important. So then you bring in all these different ways of thinking, and all of a sudden you're able to get all those goals together and able to kind of accomplish it as a team. So it's definitely an interesting perspective. And I like how you kind of take the look at sustainability and kind of look at it in a different way than I think we've been kind of maybe marketed to or geared towards looking at, like just, going green, right?
Yeah, I mean, and like I said, it all comes down to education. But like I said, you got to find a way in. And my way in is to talk about the lean process, because I would say every single leader of organizations has heard of Lean Six Sigma, continuous improvement, and things like that. Well, you know what? That is having a positive impact on sustainability, because you are reducing waste. And again, diversity and inclusion, and another thing I forgot to think about is, diverse supplier bases. And a lot, the government sets aside money every single year for supplier diversity programs and things like that. And I think that, organizations need to do the exact same thing. Some organizations do it, but and maybe with the administration, you're going to see some incentives to do for more organizations to do things like that. But I mean, that's a big discussion that we have in the supply chain world, because that brings in innovation, right? That brings in collaboration, that uncovers new opportunities. Because if that is a diverse supplier from we're born in Nigeria, for example, right? Now they know, now they have insight into that culture. Right. Now that's your way into that particular market.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, the diversity opens up so many doors for organizations.
Yeah, I agree.
And
and
it makes you see things through a different lens, right? It kind of breaks down those biases that people would have previously had, if you will, right? And that's why it's so powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you have a interesting point there about the diversity of the supplier too, especially, as we've seen with COVID, right? We had certain countries closed down, areas closed down where nothing could get out, and all of a sudden, if you have all your eggs in one basket, right, as they say, you're kind of scrambling. What do you do? But if you diversify your supplier base, then you kind of hopefully we don't have a pandemic again. But if we have something like that, you're a little more prepared, and it's not such a shock to your supply chain.
That's an interesting comment, in that I always say that we have supply chain disruptions are cyclical, in that we have them every year.
Right.
And what I mean by that is that, almost every year for the past couple of years, we've had forest fires in California that's created disruptions. We've had hurricanes in the South that's created disruptions. We've had earthquakes that's created disruptions. We had tsunami a couple of weeks ago that created disruption for a conference that I was speaking at. So I would say that they're not at the magnitude that we're currently experiencing now, but we have those disruptions, and I think that we have to create those uncertainty management plans to mitigate those disruptions.
Yes, absolutely. And I think it's an interesting point too. We've been having disruptions, like you mentioned, and I think it's just, this one was so gigantic, I guess, and so global that everybody's more aware, more on high alert. So it's definitely interesting. So I really appreciate your perspective and insights there on the sustainability. So I wanted to talk too, a little bit about, in terms of sustainable, we look at ways of making jobs more sustainable as well. And a lot of the view on that has been kind of through augmenting jobs, whether it's through fully automating a task, maybe like a mundane task that's repetitive that, nobody's really interested in doing, or it's, creating these collaborative robots that work alongside employees, or even utilizing, I'm going to say, what you don't like, AI in ways to do certain things, right? But I'm curious, from your perspective, one of the conversations we often have through this podcast that I found over the last year and a half is, I guess it seems like there's one side of the fence where, the dark warehouse, no people, fully automated is the future. But then there's the other side of the fence where it's a more collaborative setting in the warehouse where employees are more empowered by utilizing technology to help them do their job more easily through automation, robotics, AI, whatever the case may be. But I'm curious, what's your view on that? And what do you think the long term in terms of distribution, manufacturing, operations looks like? Is it going fully automated, or do you think it's going to remain collaborative? What do you think?
If you'd asked me 3 years ago, I would have said Elon would have pulled it off by now. But he attempted it 2 years ago, and the plant in California shut down twice in 2 months or something. Don't quote me on that, but like I said, a couple years ago, I would say that Tesla would have had lights out manufacturing, but that didn't happen. Now, if we go back in history, GM attempted lights out manufacturing, if I recall correctly, back in the 80s. And they were just trying a simple task of robots painting a car. Okay. So they came in, they turned these robots on. They came in the next day, the robots were painted each other. Car spotless. So they performed the lessons learned with the robot manufacturer. The robot manufacturer made adjustments, and the robot manufacturer actually did lights out manufacturing, where they had robots make other robots for 30 days straight. And the only time they turned the lights on was to move the finished robots out of the warehouse. So this manufacturer, I forgot the name of the manufacturer. I should have looked it up. But this manufacturer pulled it off, back in the late 80s. But it didn't scale.
Right.
right? So I don't.
Do you think that it didn't scale because people were intimidated by that, or why do you think it didn't?
I think the cost was going to be tremendously too high back in those times. But if there was some viability to it, Elon would have bought that company, in my opinion, and attempted it. Yeah. But is it out of the question? No. Is it 5 years away? No. I don't think that. I don't know. That's a tough one to answer because it's a tough one to answer because this technology is changing so quickly. It's changing so quickly.
Oh yeah.
Perfect example. I did TED Talk. I did 5 TED Talks on blockchain last year. This year, fast forward, some of the things I said are already obsolete.
Wow.
When we talk about the term artificial intelligence. When you talk about artificial intelligence on your podcast next year, you're going to talk about totally different topics.
Oh yeah,
it's changing that quickly. So if we talk about lights out manufacturing, it's possible. I just don't know whenever it's going to be deployed. Now, in a small manufacturing environment, I would say yes, they could pull it off. Yeah. If you're talking about a Tesla gigafactory, prove me wrong.
Yeah. yeah. I think it's interesting. How you say, a couple of years ago, you might have said different, and I think the same. It's been interesting to see how, especially doing this podcast and talking to all these different people in the industry and seeing the technology and getting more exposure to it, it's interesting to see how things have trended, in my opinion, more towards the collaborative side and kind of
I think you're going to see more and more of that, especially with the pandemic. I think you're going to see more and more of that.
Yeah, I think that's pretty interesting because it kind of gives almost, because everybody, I guess, is scared robots are going to take my job, right? And so I think it's interesting that they're going in that direction because it kind of I guess gets rid of that myth that robots are going to take the job. Maybe somewhere down the road, 100 years from now or something, but I don't. I think, like you said, like next 5 years, I don't think so either. I think it's going to get even more collaborative. Yeah.
Because you also have to think about it. You also have to think these robots are being programmed by humans.
Right.
So with that being said, you're never going to see a robot program a robot because that guy's out of a job.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. But to your earlier question, when we talk about those repetitive tasks, I think that you're going to see full automation for like business process automation, like invoicing and things like that, purchase order approvals, things like that. I think you're going to see full BPA. I know that they call that dumb AI, but as for those repetitive processes, I think you're going to see full automation from that perspective because people don't want to do those jobs. They don't want to do those tasks, and they're not going to take your jobs away. Those people who used to do those jobs are going to be retrained to do more value-added tasks. Okay, Perfect example. I'm going to make it very quick. So I just did a panel discussion for a university where an executive for an insurance company said that they used to have a number of individuals that used to walk on the roofs of Lowe's, Home Depot, Walmarts to assess the insurability of these buildings, right?
Okay.
And now with the introduction of drones, they did not take away a single job. They trained every single person that used to walk on roofs to be drone pilots, and now they're safer and they're getting paid more because they're drone pilots. Yeah. and now they're in demand, so now they have to pay them even more because people are looking for drone pilots.
Yeah.
And don't want them to leave.
Yeah, interesting. Because we talked to a couple providers of drone technology on the podcast as well for inventory control. So it's kind of the same thing. It's taking people less dangerous way. Taking them off the lifts, the forklifts, and putting them on the ground and having them so some of these drones are, they're fully automated themselves. Nobody has to pilot them within the warehouse. And so it's pretty interesting to see the way things are going. And I think, like you said, it's definitely allowing for people to elevate their job as well. So So definitely interesting to see how things are going and how they continue to go. So I appreciate you coming on and
I'm very excited.
Yeah, definitely. So I appreciate you coming on and talking to me about, kind of everything that's going on and some of your experiences as well. I hope that, we can have you on the show again, maybe next year, and see how things are going, and maybe you'll be having like in-person classes again. That would be really cool, right?
Yeah, that's the hope.
Yeah,
I know that we're actually online. We're actually remote again in the spring. So we'll see what happens in the fall. 'Cause I'm organizing a TEDx event on campus in March, and that actually got pushed. So we're going to push that to September, October. So hopefully we'll be on campus then to share some knowledge with the world.
definitely. Yeah, that would be great for sure. So if people want to get in touch with you, how can they get in touch with you?
Yes, the easiest way to get in touch with me is going to be on LinkedIn. Justin Goldston on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn often. So that's the best way to get in touch with me, and I'm always sharing a lot of information in terms of supply chain management, industrial automation, technology, as well as sustainability.
Okay, great. So Justin, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your insights with us, and hope to talk to you again soon.
Yeah, I look forward to the part 2 in late 2021.
Yeah, we'll be there.
All right, thanks a lot.
You've been listening to the New Warehouse Podcast with Kevin Lawton. Subscribe and check us out online at thenewwarehouse.com.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you want more content from the New Warehouse, check out our new video series called All Hands on LinkedIn. Just search for the New Warehouse on LinkedIn and follow along.